Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Mind Sculptors podcast. I am your host, Callahan. cEDH is full of people telling you what are and are not the best decks in the format, and on today's episode, Cameron from Play to Win joins me, and we become part of those ranks as we give our thoughts on the 10 most overrated cEDH decks in the format. Cam and I got to connect really for the first time at Oktoberfest earlier this year, and we immediately wanted to do this episode together, and we honestly had such a blast recording it, so I hope you enjoy it as much as we did. But before we get into the episode, let's take a moment and talk about today's sponsor, Dragon Shield. Dragon Shield sleeves are the only sleeves that I trust on my cards, and I've been using them for nearly 7 years. Their petrol matte sleeves are my sleeves of choice, and if you use our Dragon Shield affiliate link to get your sleeves, you will be supporting the channel. So go ahead, go into the description of this episode, click on our Dragon Shield affiliate link to get your sleeves today. With all that said, let's get into this episode with Cam. Fucking blue farm deck, right? It's the worst deck in the format. I mean, it's just completely propped up, right? Like,
I don't know. I am a huge Thassa's Oracle apologist. So
well, yeah, you could do that, but I mean, any deck with blue and black can do that, though, right? Cam?
That's
I mean,
true.
Like
that's true. Yeah, that's true. And just adding the extra colors, it's like if you don't know what else you want to do, I feel like that's the classic thing. Is I'm going into a tournament and I don't know what to play. I'm just gonna play blue farm because I don't have a creative idea to come at this with. I'm just playing blue farm.
Yeah, I'm just playing blue farm. It's just like I'll just play.
I love blue farm though.
I love Brian Koval's list a lot.
His list was really cool. I really did like that list.
I saw his list and I was like, cool. This is like exactly what I would be playing if I was playing blue farm. And,
was he on Drenith Magistrate?
Hold on. I had his list pulled up.
Someone recently was.
Yeah, he's on Draneth. He's not on Gilded Drake, which I think is a choice. But
forgot about that one.
There's like, okay, so there's this like subsection of the like legacy grinder community that's also like part of that like Cabal community or whatever that's just like completely off Gilded Drake, which I think is like bizarre. But I guess like if you're in a I think it's more bizarre in Brian's deck because Brian's is like, you know, a mid-range control strategy.
Yeah.
And so it's like Rogsai, sure. Okay, I get it. You don't want to play Gilded Drake, sure. Okay.
Yeah. It's not good interaction in something like that. Yeah.
Right. But like, I don't know. It feels pretty good in Timna Crom, but
I always really liked it in Timna Crom. I mean, yes, you do give them a blocker, but like your Crom can still go right through that blocker. No problem. So I'm a big fan of that.
Talking a lot about Magic right now.
We are talking a lot about Magic. You know what, Cal? If I'm being honest, I talk a lot about Magic. Is there any way we could talk about something else besides Magic?
Well, I was watching It's Always Sunny this morning.
I freaking love It's Always Sunny. I have that show as my number one.
I love. So okay, my hot take.
Okay, I love hot takes.
So first, well, before I get into that, welcome everybody. This is the inaugural episode of a definitely a reoccurring show that we are going to do when Cam and I can, called I don't know, Cal and Cam talk about not Magic for an hour.
I've been looking forward to this all day.
It's just so some context for people is we were at Oktoberfest and I don't know, you and I have interacted a whole lot outside of Twitter before that. And you and I were just like bouncing off of each other and Dylan was not having it.
Oh my God, it was great. It was great because like you get to know these people that like you've interacted with online a bunch, but like it's a totally different vibe once you get to like actually meet them in person. And I think that's exactly what happened to us. I know. Is that we just met, we immediately had this clicking connection, and it just couldn't be stopped by any forces within the universe.
It's somebody, I think it was Morgan Spleenface who described Ian and I being in the same room as like those talking toms, but you put two of them next to each other. And he's like, that's what those two in the same room is like. I feel like you and I are like that to an extent.
I feel like, yeah, same way. We'll just keep bouncing off of each other and it's going to be perfect.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, yeah.
So fucking sitcoms, right? We
love sitcoms. So the other reason why I'm glad that we're doing this is because you're the one that got me motivated to actually try to figure out what my top 10 sitcoms are too.
Yeah. Now, I think it's important that when we discuss this, we aren't just talking. We like define what a sitcom is, because it was interesting when I put the Twitter like thread in there. People were like, "Well, why are you leaving like Psych out or whatever?" And I'm like, "Because Psych's not a sitcom." So let me pull up the definition of a sitcom. Let's see here. As defined, it is a portmanteau of a situation comedy or situational comedy, and it is a genre of comedy centered on a fixed set of characters who mostly carry over from episode to episode. It is generally associated with studio audiences and laugh tracks, but the most defining feature of sitcoms is that they are 30 minutes. So that is, as we go through this, a very important thing to keep in mind. So your favorite hour, comedies, while they might be very funny, might not be quite a sitcom. So without further ado, let's go through this list, and let's start off at number 10 with our Watch Mojo number 10.
Nice.
Coming in at number 10. I wish I could do their voice. So okay,
well, I would like to preface a couple of things first, because I really do appreciate that that definition of a sitcom.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple other things that should be stated. Sitcoms don't have to be live action. There are animated sitcoms that are out there as well.
The Simpsons being the longest running one.
That is also very true, of all time. Yes. I do have one cheat show on here because it is technically sketch comedy.
Okay.
But my argument for sketch comedy is that technically each sketch is its own situation. So it's still situational comedy. And if it's the same actor that passes through every single sketch, it could be the same guy. Who's to say it's not the same guy? Probably by the different names that the character has in every single scene. But outside of that, I do have one cheat show on here, but it's too good for me to not count.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. Okay, so number 10. What is your number 10?
So my number 10 is actually a recent show. That I put on here because I find myself rewatching it pretty frequently already. And I just finished it earlier this year. My number 10 is Superstore.
That show is so good.
It is so good.
But I always forget about it.
I feel that. I feel like it's very slept on. So for those of you that don't know, this is a show that takes place inside of a Cloud9, which is a mock Target or a Walmart, basically. It's like a workplace comedy. It's created by one of the writers from The Office, Justin somebody. Oh my God.
It was the guy who created The American Office. I don't remember his name. That was Greg Daniels.
But Greg Daniels might have assisted. But the credited creator is Justin. something.
Okay, let me look. Justin Spitzer. There it is.
That's his name. I kept thinking Justin Roiland, and I knew that was wrong.
That's Rick and Morty.
Was the Justin going. Yep, that was the Justin going through my head.
Yeah, that is one of the like really good show. I haven't finished Superstore. I think
it's definitely worth finishing. Yeah,
I think I kind of drifted off when America Ferrera left the cast.
I think that makes sense. That is pretty close to the end. So I would argue it's definitely worth going back and finishing. And there are still some strong episodes even without the talented America Ferrera as well.
Yeah.
But she's not gone forever, so she does come back.
Right.
And so at least it's not like some other sitcoms that might or might not be on a list that had characters leave that you really miss. So.
Right. Yeah. It's a very good show. Cassidy and I watched a lot of that for a period of time, and then I think we got caught up to where it was in the seasons, and then we lost track of it.
That's fair too.
My number 10 is something that I actually is a recent show that I just started watching, and like sort of watched like periodically when it was on back in the day, but it's actually Modern Family.
That's a great one.
So a lot of people like to joke on Modern Family about how it like went on forever. But it's been kind of fun to watch the show. Like I think we're on like season 6 or 7 now.
I think so. Yeah, it might even be more than that.
There were 9 seasons of it, or no, excuse me, 11 seasons.
But you guys are on.
Yeah, so we're watching through it right now, and we're on like season 6 or 7. But like, I love the family dynamic. I love the characters. I love the way that a lot of the characters are written. Like it's just like one of the shows that I think it's also funny because I think this is a show that earlier in my 20s I wouldn't have appreciated as much. Because now that I'm like married, I get a lot more of the humor, if that makes sense. It's like a lot more of the humor vibes. Because you're just like, oh, this is a situation Cassidy and I find ourselves in. You know what I mean? Like it's fun, like funny from that angle.
No, I definitely agree. The cast is very strong. And all of the children who are in that show have like all gone on and done like a bunch of other great stuff now too. Excuse me. But no, I actually started watching that one as it came out.
Okay.
Because we were also watching like The Office as it came out too. And then knowing that there was like another, I guess Parks and Rec was the first other like interview type show, but this was like one of the first interview documentary style sitcoms that didn't really address that the cameras were there as frequently as some of the other shows had done.
Yeah, it's funny because it's clear they're filming a documentary, but it's also sort of not clear because like the way, like the one thing I appreciate about The Office, I going to spoil something. The Office is not on my top 10. I don't love The Office. I'm glad
that we're talking about this now. Yeah.
But one of the things I do appreciate about The Office is the fact that they reference the fact that there is a like crew filming them. Like, I think that's like one of the most endearing parts of that. Is like Jim staring at the camera when something dumb is going on is like really fun. It breaks the fourth wall. And because of the format, it feels really good. And that is probably the biggest critique I have of Modern Family is they don't do that as much, but they also do the sit down interviews like in the living rooms. And it's like, I think that kind of clashes a little bit, but I think overall, like it was a very groundbreaking show, especially when it came out, like the way that it just portrayed 2 gay characters as just, you know, they're just people doing their thing.
It was as much of a family as everyone else's family. And it was at a time where there was not as much of that in TV.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree. Definitely groundbreaking. I mean, I think it did a really good job of, trying to capture a wide swath of things too. I think Jay and Gloria's relationship is a great.
Ed O'Neill is my favorite character on that show. Jay is my favorite character.
He's so good.
He's so funny.
Oh yeah. All right, I want to move. Let's talk about my number 9.
Number 9.
Now my number 9 I have fallen off of a little bit more recently, but I am rewatching it and it's reminding me why it's my number 9. This is Archer. How can you go wrong with Archer? Everything what catches me about this show, and the first thing that really got me, first it's the weird animation style, right? Like you look at it and you go like, this is really weirdly realistic, and as the show goes on, it only gets more and more creepily realistic and like how good the animators are at this look. But what I love so much is listening to the words that connect each scene together and trying to like figure out what's the punishment going to be for this? And then it cuts to Mallory going, swift and severe. The punishment will be swift and severe in a completely different context. That's totally separate from what was just happening. I didn't get into a lot of the coma sequences that had come out for like seasons 8 and 9 and I think 10 even too. So I had kind of fallen off it a little bit, but my goal through this watch through is to get through everything because seasons 1 through 7 are absolutely amazing. I don't care what you have to say about season 5. The whole, cocaine dealing thing that they did was also hysterical. And
I was about to say that Archer Vice is the pinnacle of the show. Like
it's so great.
It is my favorite season of that show.
They really started to nail like that cast at that point then too. Like the episode where like they're all in the elevator, they're all stuck in that elevator. Like that is the pinnacle of every single one of those characters.
I can't even remember what the last season of that show is that I watched. Is like my biggest issue. It was after Vice. Like I think it was like 8 or 9.
Season 6 was really strong again. Because they kind of went back to the similar format for the first 4 seasons.
Right.
Season 7 is when the Figgis Agency was going on.
That's right.
And they had a season-long story for that one, but that one was still pretty entertaining. And then once they were all like new characters in season 8, I had a really hard time following. And I found myself playing Magic Arena while the show was on, and I couldn't follow everything then, and it just kind of fell off at that point. So I'm
seeing a connection here.
So I still have it up so high because like there is a humongous chunk of the show is still incredible and super witty, super funny. And I did the coma sequences definitely a disservice. So I'm very excited to go back and check those out.
So this will be fun for when we go and do our favorite dramas, because then we can sit and have a conversation about, does the last season of Game of Thrones make it a bad show? And that is a conversation.
That is a conversation because I have other thoughts about that we could spend a whole podcast just on Game of Thrones.
So my number 9 is a show that is also animated that people will probably make fun of me for, but it is Family Guy. And,
first of all, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are no wrong answers for anyone's top 10 sitcoms.
I would
no
agree
wrong
with
answers. Nobody should make fun of you for having any shows on your list.
That's fair. And like what you like, unless it's with some caveats in there.
A couple of things, but for the most part,
like
Family Guy is not one of those caveats.
Yeah, Family Guy is like one of my favorite shows. It like really, it was very like influential because like I like everybody who's my age watched Family Guy in their teenage years, and it was a huge deal in the mid aughts, right? And so like that was just like a huge time for me, like growing up. And so I just remember those things. But part of why I think that it's so good is that it has some of the like best individual episodes of any TV show, and it's not even close. Like,
yeah, that's a good point.
Like a Christmas special I watch every single year is the Road to the North Pole Christmas special, because it's just so.
I remember this one. Yes,
the songs are great. The story is fun. Like the entire thing is it's so funny. It's my favorite Christmas special. And something that I don't think people like really know about it is it was like an Emmy nominated Christmas special. And so
I
it's
didn't know
like
that. That's great.
Yeah, like the songs in it were nominated for Emmys because they were that good.
Holy cow.
But that's also like one of my favorite things about Family Guy is it has like this background in Seth MacFarlane, who's like a musical theater nerd and all of these things.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Have you heard his jazz album?
Oh, yes. I've listened to all of his jazz albums. They're so good.
Oh, right. That's true. I've only listened to one. I guess that shows from what I just said.
His Christmas album
beautiful.
Is so good. He sings some really good Christmas standards and then some of the like more obscure ones on it. But I highly recommend his Christmas album.
Yeah, I'll have to it's that time, at least from when we're recording this.
Yes,
it's definitely that time.
It is.
So I will definitely be checking that out. Yeah.
But yeah, I am a big fan of Family Guy. It's like always a soft spot in my heart. I love the musical numbers. I know everybody jokes about the cutaways. I love the cutaways.
I love the
I think
cutaways.
they're so fucking funny.
They're great.
Like it's just like do you remember Seth MacFarlane's cavalcade of cartoon comedy that was on YouTube?
Arguably one of my favorite things that he did.
Oh, it's so good. Like
so good.
And it's all just cutaways.
Sketches. It's every single one of those sketches is incredible.
If you have not watched it, go watch it because it's very, very good. Okay, so number 8. What is your 8th favorite sitcom?
Good question. My number 8 is the only one of my top 10 that I won a trivia night for.
Okay.
And I won a bunch of juice because my number 8 is Arrested Development.
Okay.
I adore the show.
Okay.
This is one of the most. It's a very fast-paced show.
Yes.
That originally did not do well because it was way ahead of its time.
Well, I mean, how much could it take, Michael? 3 seasons?
Right? Like, there's so many quotable lines from that show. It's incredibly smart. And definitely way ahead of its time. Came out during an era where you were still watching shows on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah.
But once the show hit Netflix, it was incredibly bingeable. And years after it was canceled, it got a massive cult following.
Yeah.
Which was huge. This show also has a special place in my heart because I used to work at a hotel, and I checked Jeffrey Tambor into his hotel room one time, and that was super sweet. But the seasons 4 and seasons 5 are definitely much weaker than the original 3 seasons.
I still thought they were funny.
I did too.
They kind of go off the deep end a little bit, but
they definitely do. But I really appreciate the remake of season 4 that they did.
Yeah.
Which now just feels like half of the episodes is just Ron Howard explaining what went on in previous episodes to help make sure you don't fall behind, and like the other half is just the new content that you're getting. But like it definitely makes it a lot more easier to digest. And season 5, you don't hear talked about a lot, but there's some great stuff that happens in there too. So Arrested Development gotta be in my top 10.
Okay. So my number 8 is God, I'm just picking like all of the like generic shows that people love to hate on. My number 8 is The Big Bang Theory.
Is it really?
I love that show. I love so full disclosure, I love classic sitcoms. Like like it is very much a old school laugh track style sitcom, and I'm very here for it. I think they're delightful. They're not for everybody, but they're definitely for me. And part of what I like about The Big Bang Theory is, one, I think it was like people like to be like, oh, well, it's just like them making fun of nerds. And I'm like, they definitely grow those characters a lot. Like the characters don't remain as like stereotypes for very long. All of them grow substantially from season 1 all the way to like, I think it ran like 11 seasons to like the very
long
end.
Time, yeah.
And also one of the best things about that show is it has one of the best endings ever of any TV show. Like it has a very, like the finale of the show is so it wraps up all the storylines. it has a really good arc. Everybody's completed a very good arc. Everything feels like very good and final. And I'm literally getting goosebumps thinking about it, actually.
That's such a good feeling to have about a show, though. Like, that's exactly what they want to do, is, make you feel exactly how you're feeling, where you go back, you think about it, and, like, it still has this connection to you.
Yeah.
Like, they hit the nail right on the head.
Like, I highly recommend it. Like, it's one of the things of, like, once, like, Penny and Leonard get married, like, they start, like, they have their own interactions, and like they become more than just the stereotypes they were at the beginning. And that's one of the things, even my wife, because I would watch through it when we got HBO Max last year, and last year being like 2021, I think at this point. But when I watched through it, she was just like, once we got to the later season, she's like, these characters have really grown, and they really grow on you. And it's just, that's probably one of my favorite parts about it. I think the writing is a little cheesy, but I like it. I like the characters.
That's
I think they're fun.
Sitcom
yeah,
stuff.
and that's classic sitcoms.
Yeah, it's right up your alley.
And I love cheesy bullshit, and it's a good time. And I mean, it wasn't the like longest running sitcom like on television it didn't run as long as it did and get the ratings it got for as long as it did for no reason, right? Like,
no, that's the exact thing that I was thinking too. I think what happens with a lot of people, specifically people on the internet, will, see themselves in some of these characters and not necessarily always jive with some of the stuff that goes on with some of them. Because I understand, like, I fear Sheldon is not necessarily the best person. So I also know that I was the guy at the party once who was being explained to by someone else that, like, they love the show because they know someone else that's like these characters.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, oh, that's me too. Like, you and I can't relate. But like, it is nice to see a more positivity towards that show, because I think you're absolutely right. Like, it wasn't on for 11 seasons for no reason. If it was bad, somebody would have done something.
Like, CBS has had like so many
trash shows.
Yeah, like that don't last very long. Like, if it wasn't getting them ratings, they wouldn't be like, and ratings don't necessarily equate quality, but like a lot of people do like it. And I just like,
and again, you're like, there's no wrong answers on this list. So, that means that, if nobody's wrong for liking the show, there's definitely a reason why it was on for 11 seasons. So it definitely did its job.
And it's a good time. But okay, number 7. What is your number 7, my friend?
Number 7 is another animated sitcom.
Okay.
And now the show that Courtney and I fall asleep to almost every night.
Okay.
This is Bob's Burgers.
Okay.
Such a good show.
Everybody tells me it's so good. And
have you not seen this?
So I have watched the 2-ish seasons of it. And it was just like, it just never landed for me. It was just, the humor is like probably just way too dry, I think.
It's very dry. It's very juvenile.
Yeah.
Especially Gene. But that's part of the reason why I love it. Especially seasons 1 through 5. Like, seasons 1 and 2 are almost like a completely different TV show from the rest of Bob's Burgers. Season 3, like, they hit their stride. It's obvious that the animation budget increased for season 3. I think that's when they get the new theme song. I'm pretty sure that the whole new like intro.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure starts in season 3. And really the characters start to grow from there. And then for season 6, I think it is when they realized that there were a lot of middle school age children that were watching the show. And it now, like, season 6 through season 13, I think they're on now.
Yeah.
It's again like a completely different show. The characters are still the same. Louise is a little bit different, I would argue. She's a lot less
chaotic.
Yes, in much of the later seasons, and much more forgiving and arguably human in the later seasons, which I understand why they did that.
Yeah. That's like super responsible. Like,
right?
To notice your fan base and then like adjust to it.
100%, 100%, especially when it was not what you were expecting to go for.
Right.
The recent movie was great, and the cast is absolutely phenomenal. I have two
John Benjamin is so funny.
Right, I have 2 shows in my top 8 that star him. And I went from Archer to Bob's Burgers, which is always a very weird cross section.
Right.
Yeah. But the last.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The last thing I wanted to say about Bob's is that I am a humongous pun appreciator too.
Yeah.
And the amount of the joke burgers, the different store names and different exterminator names that they come up with for every single episode, starting from season 3 onward, like I have a super huge appreciation for that.
Yeah. I remember when it came out, and I just like I tried it because like it came out like Jesus, like in 2011. Which was right in the prime of my, adoration of Family Guy. And I like tried it, and I don't know. You are giving me a reason to try it again, because it sounds like everybody I know says it's like really good.
Oh yeah.
So,
there's musical numbers as well. I mean,
okay. Well, I'm in.
The musical number, right? The musical numbers start to come in like, much later seasons,
right.
And they're lightly peppered in, and the ones that they pepper in are phenomenal. There's some great stuff. There's a couple songs that I have downloaded on my phone, and I will belt them out when I am in the car alone or with Courtney.
I understand.
In Space specifically is phenomenal from season 9, episode 1. I thought it was just lyrical geniusness, I will say.
Okay.
I won't spoil it for you. I'm going to make you watch 9 seasons so that you can get
it. I looked at I looked up Bob's Burger. Bob's Burgers, and it's 13 seasons, and it's still running. And that's like
it's currently on its 13th season.
That is wild to me that it's been on that long.
Yeah. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah.
The movie came out earlier this year.
And it was a very successful movie too. Like it did very well.
It connected the show great. You got to see snippets of characters you never thought you would, like Bob's mom. Bob's mom doesn't come up in the show like barely ever.
Right.
So it's cool to like get to learn a bunch of other stuff. Plus, then for season 13, they also updated the intro to include incidents that happened in the movie.
Oh, that's so fun.
Definitely recommend. Right. So definitely recommend, if you're doing the watch through, the correct way to go is watch seasons 1 through 12, watch the movie, start season 13.
Okay. Yeah. So my number 7 is also an anime. We're like so far like right on the same wavelength, just like slightly different shows.
We're just bouncing off of each other. It's just like Oktoberfest all over again.
So my number 7 is Rick and Morty.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes.
I love Rick and Morty. I hate the fan base. But
I incredibly appreciate what you're saying, because I think I totally agree.
It is a very clever show. Mm-hmm. It's not as clever as people like to say it is. Sometimes it is just incredibly dumb, and it knows it's being incredibly dumb. And people will be like, oh, well, it's actually this meta commentary on this. And Dan Harmon will just be like, no, it's not. Like I think if Dan Harmon wasn't who he is, I would hate the show. But because Dan Harmon is just a delightful person, I love the show. I love the writing. All of the characters are like I like seeing the growth of all of the characters, especially into like where they're at now, where like Jerry is like a completely different character, and where they started off from. Or he just like in a recent season ends up beating some guy up because he's more confident now. And it's just like they have the cyclical storytelling that Dan Harmon's really known for, but he still has the character development in there. Mm-hmm. And I know like a lot of people really didn't like the way that it had like the canonical like stuff that they went through. But honestly, like I think it is a show that definitely is funny. It's very smart. It's very witty. And also just is, while it's being smart, it's also being completely absurd and stupid. And like I think that's part of why like Justin Roiland balances Dan Harmon, I think, really well. Because you have Dan Harmon who like has all of these like really big thoughts and wants to explore all this stuff. And then you have Justin Roiland's like, hi! It's just like, oh, jeez, I'm Lemonhead. Oh, this is my one voice that I make for everybody that isn't Rick.
That is so true. That is so true. I will completely agree with you here, though, because I watched seasons 1 through 3, and I was pretty religious about watching them. I repeated them quite a bit.
Yep.
But I've been known to stay away from things because of the fan base before, and that's ultimately what made me not go back to season 4 after that.
Yeah.
It was some of the overuse of Pickle Rick and getting really excited about that, and the Szechuan sauce thing. Was not it was just another case for me. That being said, what I did watch of seasons 1 through 3 was absolutely hysterical.
The most recent season is fucking hilarious. Like,
maybe I have to go
back. There is an episode where, and I don't want to spoil too much, but I don't think it really matters. But like at some point throughout 4 through 6, because I think they're on season 7 now. It's either 6 or 7, something like that. But anyway, at some point in there, Rick made a clone of Beth, and they don't know which one's like the real one.
Yes, I remember this. Yes.
But she comes back and she's like a reoccurring character in the show now. And
that's so funny.
Like in one of the episodes is them falling in love and trying to hide it from the family, but everybody but Jerry figures it out, and it's just everybody being horrified and coping with it.
Oh my God.
And it's so funny. It's so funny.
Oh yeah. I'm a big sucker for improvisation as well.
Yeah.
So the nature of their show and the nature of the intergalactic cable.
Oh, those episodes are so good.
So good. And I definitely was sad to see it not happen in season 3.
Yeah.
And maybe that warped what I thought about that memory episode, but it was definitely not as strong as, what any possibility of another intergalactic cable could have been.
I think them moving away from intergalactic cable was probably, I don't know this for certain, but I would venture to guess it has something to do with Dan Harmon's experience on Community, where
I would not be surprised by that.
Every season they were like, okay, where's our paintball episode? And it was just like kind of got old after a certain point. But that being said, Rick and Morty is fantastic. And spoiler alert, this will not be the last time you hear me talk about a Dan Harmon show. So
I love it.
The next number 6. What is your number 6 here, Cam?
The number 6. Okay. So the number 6 this is still a sitcom because it's based around one character and he does one thing in every single episode.
Okay.
But there's a couple, he does it a couple times. Are you familiar with Nathan For You?
I could feel this coming. We don't, okay. Full clarity. We don't have a script. I have no idea what's on Cam's list. And I just have like the note app open right here on my screen. And
I have it on my phone sitting right here.
As soon as you said it's not really a thing, but it's one main character and he goes through different situations, I was immediately like, okay, it's going to be one of two things. It's either Nathan For You or it's what's the other one on Comedy Central that's like Nathan For You?
Who does that?
He has the big hair and it's like has the Let Me In on the White House.
Eric Andre.
Yeah, the Eric Andre show.
Eric Andre, yeah. He technically has another. What's his face is on that show too. What's that other comedian? He's really funny.
He's the guy who dropped all the Hannibal Buress. He's the guy who dropped all the stuff about Bill Cosby.
Yes, he is really funny. He is very funny. Hannibal Buress too. Yes. But yeah, no, Nathan For You, like this is the exact kind of dry, cringy humor that I need in my life. Like the way that he just handles situations and responds to people. The show is not, I don't think the show is 100% real. Like I think there's some stuff that is set up that like, you can't know. But if you're not familiar with the premise, this guy, Nathan Fielder, goes around to these different businesses and he gives them advice. But in almost in like a style of like a bar rescue kind of show.
Like Hell's Kitchen or what is it?
Restaurant Impossible.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. stuff like that. Although, but it's a Comedy Central show, Cameron. Yes, I know it is. That's because the advice that he gives is actually secretly genius, but also just ludicrous and totally insane. The first episode that I watched was when he was trying to figure out how to get a bar to allow smoking inside in a state where it's illegal to smoke indoors. It's the most creative stuff that he comes up with for this. Like he makes it on the national news at least twice in the show, off of stunts that he's doing. Again, he's a secret genius.
I feel like my experience with that show is it's like sort of like Borat, but like also just like slightly less of a character.
Yes, he is his own character.
Yes.
Nathan. Like he's definitely putting on a character for the show, but the character that he puts on is perfect, and he personifies it absolutely.
Yeah.
The reoccurring characters that he has, like, yeah, it's right. That's a sitcom trope right there. You have reoccurring characters. Simon, the security guard, reoccurring character right there. You got what's his face, the Bill Gates impersonator, who the entire series finale, the hour-and-a-half long series finale, is based around. Like, there's a ton of there's just a ton of lovable characters that he finds while he's going throughout the show.
Okay.
I cannot recommend this enough.
I've
also not recommend watching like a couple of episodes to get the feel for it.
Yeah.
Because it's tough to watch the first time if cringe humor and just like uncomfortable humor is not your cup of tea. But there's definitely an art to what he's doing at the same time. So this is easily my number 6.
Okay. So my number 6 is nothing like that. It is Parks and Recreation.
Ooh, great show.
It is so good. Has the worst first season of any well, that's not entirely true. It has a very, very bad first season. That
a classic Greg Daniels move right there.
You're not wrong. But like the first season of the show is like almost effectively retconned. Like they almost like kind of write it out of the show because like everything in it just did not work. And there's like a really good YouTube video from one of the like Nerdstalgic or whatever those YouTube channels
Love Nerdstalgic.
That talked about the issue with like how they wrote the characters, specifically Leslie in the first season, and how in the second season she was very like doing good, all these things, like very happy and not as like work focused, I guess. It was a much more approachable character. And it's one of those things where when I started watching the show with Cassidy, because I'd already seen the show, I told Cassidy, I was like, you need to watch the first season. It's going to suck, but you need to have the context because the second season kind of, picks up where that left off. But the good news is it's only like 8 episodes. So it's not very long. So it's like just a few hours. You got to like drudge through a like perfectly average comedy. And then it's gold from there on out. And like Chris Pratt in that show is so funny.
I think that's peak Chris Pratt is in Parks and Rec. Like he plays that character beautifully.
I love Chris Pratt. And I think he's hilarious.
I find that he and April are the couple that you root for.
Yes,
they're definitely it. I liked them significantly more than Ben and Leslie.
Yeah, well, Ben and Ben and Leslie really connected to like Cassidy and I because we related to their relationship a lot.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah. And so that was one of the things that I really liked about it is there like, and that's the thing about the show too, is like everything feels relatable while also being quite funny and out there. And like, I don't think there is a single character on that show that I dislike. Honestly,
I think Honestly, I think that I would agree with that. Because, spoiler alert, Parks and Rec does not make my top 10, but all of those characters are very lovable.
Oh, yeah.
And like Ron Swanson is the most curmudgeonly, and he is still like one of the best things that's come out of NBC.
One of the things that I don't think enough people remember about that show is that Billy Eichner was on that show too.
Billy Eichner stole the show.
It was
in the final couple
so
seasons.
funny.
He absolutely stole the show. I almost totally forgot that Craig was in that show. But when Aziz Ansari is trying to open the restaurant and Craig wants to be his sommelier, but he can't not yell, and like when he shuts himself in the wine cellar, why would you order red wine with fish? It is the funniest thing. Oh my god! Thank you for making me remember.
Billy Eichner is so funny. Great. Like so Billy on the Street, I would consider to be one of my favorite shows. That show's so good.
Shout out to Billy on the Street. That's another good one. You know, that would be another one about one dude going around doing his thing. That's technically not a sitcom. So I'd file that somewhere in there.
Fair enough. So okay, number 5. We're getting into the final 5, the big ones here.
Ooh, yes, these are the big ones here.
Number 5 for Cam. What is your number 5 pick?
My number 5 is Frasier.
Okay.
I love
Grandpa.
Frasier, Cal.
All right.
Frasier is to me like almost everything that I want out of like a classic sitcom.
Yeah.
Like your classic sitcom setup, it's almost everything that I want from it.
Yeah.
Again, all of the characters are super duper lovable. Niles Crane is one of the most hysterical human beings on the planet. I just love the way that David Hyde Pierce portrays him. It makes me love David Hyde Pierce even more, even without getting to know him as a person. Just like knowing that he is Niles Crane, I love. And if you've ever seen any of his other stuff, he is a phenomenal actor. So I absolutely love that. I love that Eddie, the dog, is as much a part of the main cast as everyone else in the show. Really makes him feel like he's family. I love the journey that they take. I love the Maris Crane quotes. Like every joke that they make about Maris, especially in seasons 1 through 3, is like, it's spot on. I just love the portrait that they portray of her, and to the point where it became so specific and so grandiose that they could never hire an actress to portray her because you just couldn't fit that description. But it's so smart. It's peak contradictorial comedy. I'm coining this term right now, but like there are so many times where a character will say one thing, Frasier especially, and immediately the exact opposite will happen. And they do it great. Every party that they throw is a humongous disaster and so funny to watch it just completely fall apart.
Frasier's like
Kelsey Grammer.
Frasier's like one of the most successful spin-off shows too.
I think it might be the most successful with 11 seasons coming in at just one under the show that it spun off.
Right.
Like Kelsey Grammer played that character for 20 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time. I don't know if any other actor can say like in a sitcom,
right,
or like most of like TV shows that they played like the same. Doctor Who's been on for 60 years,
right?
But they changed doctors willy-nilly, right? Like I'm so excited to be wrong about this and learn a ton.
Hold on, I want to see best. What are the most successful
spin-off
TV shows? I feel like Laverne and Shirley has got to be on this, right? Like
it is. I actually just watched a video on this.
Okay,
like a couple weeks ago.
Okay. The Facts of Life. I kind of forgot that The Facts of Life was a spin-off.
As did I. I have not actually seen The Facts of Life. I think that's something else that I know this is a really awkward time to put this in here, but like I've also not seen every single sitcom in the universe.
Correct.
So there might be some stuff, as of December 2022, like this is my top 10.
Yes, same. Let's see. Okay, this is making me like click through multiple. Okay, Mork and Mindy, The Jeffersons,
I'm not surprised about that.
Okay,
one.
Jefferson's is a spinoff of All in the Family. Yeah, that makes sense. 7 is Frasier. 6 is Maude, which is a spinoff of All in the Family, but also kind of led into doing the Golden Girls.
Okay. Interesting.
So that's interesting. Daria was a spinoff of Beavis and Butthead, which I did not know.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's like something I heard like once, maybe like a couple years ago, but have not thought about that.
So it's like, okay, so it's like Frasier, Mork and Mindy, Laverne and Shirley, Good Times. Those are like some of the most successful spin-off shows, basically.
With this being the only spin-off show that we're probably going to talk about, at least on my list that we're going to talk about, like I think that really says something.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredibly, again, another really smart show.
Yeah.
Love the trajectory of all the characters. So number 5.
My number 5 is like tangentially related to the Cheers verse, sort of.
Ooh, okay.
In that Ted Danson is in my number 5 pick, which is The Good Place, which is probably one of my favorite just straight up TV shows of all time. Like, if you have not watched The Good Place, I can't really talk about The Good Place a whole lot without spoiling The Good Place is the issue. But like The Good Place is one of the funniest TV shows that's also extremely thoughtful, has a lot to say about philosophy, has a lot to say about like existence and life and meaning and all of these things. And all of the characters are so well written and so funny. And I just like Ted Danson's character on that show is so good. Like I love.
He plays like Saint Mike. Which saint does he play?
He plays as a character named Michael. But
okay.
I can't tell you more than that because that would spoil the show.
Okay, that's fair. I have seen a singular episode of this show, and it was on a plane.
Okay,
so I need to do the show justice.
It is a show that has a very clear beginning, middle, and end. Like it is a continuous story. It is not like a one episode arc. It's like the whole series. And it's really, I think it's only like 4 seasons. But it's very like each season is very intentional. And it ends where it's like it's very clear it ended where the creator wanted it to end. And so
I love that. Not enough shows are like that.
Yeah. It ends beautifully. It starts, it's hilarious. It's so good. I highly recommend The Good Place. And so
I'm not surprised to see this on the actually, hilariously enough, after your description about talking about like philosophy and like life and stuff like that. I'm not surprised to see this on the same list as like Rick and Morty that like also deals with like your own existence and stuff like that, right? So I like that theme.
I have a thing that gets me going. So number 4.
You're your own character.
I am.
I would love to say, right, I love it. I would love to say before I talk about my number 4 that we have yet to overlap in our top 10.
I know, that's wild.
I think that is pretty wild too, but I also kind of love it too because I love that we've had more shows we've gotten to talk about. So
I also think I think as we get to these like final 4 though, I have a feeling there will be at least 1 or 2 that might overlap.
I have a feeling too.
Yeah.
I have a feeling too. Yeah. But why don't you like The Office?
So my biggest issue with The Office is that it just went on forever. And
yeah, it did. Hell yeah.
I also didn't think so. The parts of The Office I liked weren't the things that people liked about The Office.
Okay.
And so it was like my least favorite thing in The Office is Dwight. Like if I could write Dwight out of that show, I would do it immediately.
Interesting. Okay.
I thought like all the other characters were very funny. I think once Steve Carell left the show, you should have just ended the show because
definitely share that point with a lot of people.
Like The one point of contention I would have with that is I think they really missed a chance to replace him with Will Ferrell, and had that been the like trajectory, I thought it would have been great. But replacing him with was it Jason Sudeikis?
No, it was not James
Ed
Woods.
Helms.
It was well, they did a whole. Oh, I guess that's true. Yeah. It was. I was trying to think of Robert California for some reason.
Oh, okay,
Helms, yeah. The new character that they introduced was Robert California for that season,
right?
Which was definitely a new direction.
Yes.
I totally understand why you feel that way.
Yeah.
What I like about The Office is what a lot of other people like about The Office.
Yeah.
I like Dwight. I mean, Jim and Pam all the way.
Oh, for sure.
I don't understand the Pam hate. I don't understand the Pam hate. You get that Pam hate out of here if you're a Pam hater. I don't want to hear about it. I Michael Scott is up in the top 3 best TV show characters of all time.
I could definitely agree with that.
100%, right? I think that's just a fact at this point.
So is The Office your number 4?
The Office is my number 4. Yeah, that's where this was going. Yeah.
Okay.
Office is my number 4. It's the show that got me and Courtney together, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it definitely has a soft spot in my heart. Watched it from one of the few shows that I got to watch as it was on from very early on, and then watched it as it was finishing. I had my senior year of high school was the year that the show ended.
Okay.
And it was wrapping up like basically around the same time that graduation was.
Mm-hmm.
And there were so many people. Once I got to college, I had like 8 people that lived on my floor that said, I gave a speech at graduation, and I quoted something that Andy said in the series finale that like hit me. And like, it was the best line probably in the entire show that Ed Helms gets. And they really did Ed Helms' character a disservice in that last season. But to go off your point for the last 2 seasons, while I'm on the topic, I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Like I think the show would be even better if I didn't have to include seasons 8 and seasons 9.
I totally get that.
That being said, I want to talk about season 9 specifically because I do feel season 8 is the weakest. I do like Robert California generally, but I think some of the storylines that they do just aren't as strong. And Nellie Bertram is not a character I'm a huge fan of.
When Mindy Kaling left the writing team, it was very clear.
It definitely was. Yeah, you could definitely tell when the team switched up.
Yeah, and granted, that was because she'd like gotten big and was doing her own things, so she wasn't.
She did her own stuff.
But like, it was very clear that Mindy Kaling not writing for the show was like when the show's decline really happened, because it was like. And the funny thing is it's like I actually hate Mindy Kaling's character on the show, but like her writing is so good, and she's made a ton of very, very good shows.
She's so smart. She's incredibly funny, and super talented. Mindy Kaling. Yeah. But that's another show where like so many of the characters are lovable.
Yeah.
I have a couple exceptions. I'm not a Nellie Bertram fan. I think there's a couple things that she does that are really funny, but I don't know. I just don't think they did a ton with that character.
Yeah.
More. The other my hottest take is that I don't think that Angela should have gotten a happy ending.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
After how her character arc went, you've seen the whole thing, I assume?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. After her whole character arc and how she treats people, like I know why people liked her, and I know that her relationship with Dwight was definitely something that people had their eyes on for the entire span of the show.
Right.
But like she was terrible to everyone in her life. I don't know. I don't think she should have gotten a happy ending,
that's one of the things that I dislike when shows do, when they like everybody has to have a happy ending, and I'm like,
yeah,
that kind of undoes some of what you're doing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, but I don't know. I guess for me, like The Office was like, I didn't watch The Office when it was like coming out.
Yeah.
And like I got just when I was in high school, it was just a deluge of That's What She Said and all of that stuff. And it just like annoyed me a bunch. And so like when we actually sat down and watched the show, it's like I don't dislike the show, to be clear. Like I think it's it is a good show. But it's a show that just bugs me sometimes because of how popular it is. It's
so
just like
culturally relevant. And then when Gen Z came in and were old enough to start watching the show, or really discovered it, and it had a completely new resurgence then.
Yeah.
I think that show is, weirdly enough, going to be a show that really stands the test of time.
Yeah.
I think that the dinner party
episode is one of the best episodes of television ever made.
That is an undisputed fact as well. Like, this show just has so many things that it comes out and says, this is a scientific law. The dinner party is an amazing episode of comedy. Like, it's
just one of the best television episodes. End of story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So The Office is definitely my number 4. Yeah.
Okay. So my number 4 is a show that also had some weak seasons, but it is getting, it had 6 seasons, and it is getting a movie, and that's Community.
They just confirmed it.
They just confirmed it. And like I said, I love Dan Harmon. Community was a show that I did not watch when it came out. And then everybody, like I was like looking for things to watch. So I asked people for recommendations, and I kept hearing from people who knew me really well. They were like, you will love Community. You need to watch Community. And I was like, okay, sure, whatever. So I gave it a chance. And at first I'm like, this is kind of like fine. And then halfway through the first season is when the show goes full nutso. And that is when the show is just completely pops off and is so good. The paintball episodes are good. Like even the ones they did in the later seasons were like, even when they were like kind of worn out, they were still very good and funny. It's really sad because it's like a show that was very good, had so much good going for it, but also just had like all of the worst things happened to it that could possibly happen. Like between the production or like the producers of the show at NBC just like not getting it and forcing Dan Harmon out, and then bringing in a completely unproven writing team, and then bringing Dan Harmon back, but it was too late at that point, to the like whole Chevy Chase being a giant piece of shit the entire time.
What a debacle that was. Yeah. I was
Hearing,
going to say all those characters are so lovable.
Yeah.
And Pierce.
like, and it was like, I sort of got where, like, because there was like a thing where they would talk about, like, Joel McHale's talked about it a lot, where he's been like, I like got where Chevy was coming from on my character is written this way. I don't particularly like that. I would like my character to be a little bit more agreeable. But the issue is that Chevy Chase wasn't agreeable. So like it just like the fact that like he and Joel McHale got in a physical altercation is absolutely absurd.
That's crazy.
But it's such a funny show. And the fact that the way they wrote him off is with zero context. He just died.
Yeah. He just dies. He just like, what is it? He just like masturbates too much or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It's just it's like the most embarrassing way that they could have had him go, which I think is like the perfect send off for Pierce.
Yeah. But like those like Joel McHale's hilarious. Of course, Childish Gambino is great. My boy.
It's phenomenal in there. You have the beautiful and talented Yvette Nicole Brown.
Yes.
The beautiful and talented Allison Brie. Like, there's what a great cast, and Chevy Chase.
The other thing that's wild about that show that I don't think enough people think about is that show was also created by what's name? The Russo brothers, who
I totally
directed Endgame and directed Infinity War and Captain America movies and all these big action films now. Like they produced and wrote and directed a lot of the original episodes of Community. Like
yeah.
And the fun thing is like they do, because of that, Community members show up in like a lot of the Russo brothers movies as like cameos. So like Chang is in Endgame, Yvette Nicole Brown is in Endgame very briefly.
Oh yeah, she is.
Like they all cameo in the like Marvel movies that they direct at some point. And it's so fun to see that connection. And I'm so excited it's getting a movie.
I know. Yeah, it's about time because Op-Ed's been talking about it for, years at this point now. So it's good that it's finally coming. So,
6 seasons of the movie.
The first 3 seasons are phenomenal, and it's really what got me into the show. Remedial what theory? What is that episode? Like
Remedial chaos theory.
That's what it is. Like you can't deny. Like that is a really cool portrayal of character.
Yeah.
Characters that they established really early and really quickly, really strong.
Yes.
There's no denying that show is really.
Yeah. Can't. The last few seasons are rough, but it's not the show's fault, to be fair. It's like
no, they were working with what they had. Yeah, they really were.
Because that's another show that was like Heroes. Because if you remember, like Heroes, like went off the deep end, and it's just a product of the writer's strike. And so like there's all the like the TV industry was a mess at that period of time.
Oh, it was. Yeah.
So number 3, what is your third favorite sitcom?
The top 3. Number 3 is a classic.
Okay.
And I think that this style, also defines. I think this style defines my top 3.
Okay.
I think this is really where there's a little bit of a tonal shift. Maybe not in the direction of like a BoJack Horseman kind of tonal shift, but definitely a tonal shift in what they were doing with a sitcom.
Right.
My number 3 is Seinfeld.
Okay.
This show was totally revolutionary. When it came out. Larry David's no learning, no hugging style of or approach to the show was genius in my mind.
Yeah.
And it completely transformed what a lot of other shows had done in the past where, these are bad people and, they're doing bad things, but like, I know that I still know that they're bad based on them never winning.
Yeah.
George Costanza.
Oh my gosh.
I think is right up there with Michael Scott in the top 3.
One of my favorite characters.
So good. Like every character trait about George is hysterical. His cheapness,
his anger,
how uncomfortable he is with his sexuality. Like there is so many great little aspects about George.
I felt it move, Jerry.
That's not the tell. Contact's the tell. It's so incredible. Like
it's also the show that had I just watched a video about this that was amazing, and it was talking about how I think it was in the 5th season that is when Seinfeld became Seinfeld. And that was the season where they had specifically the episode where everybody thought George and Jerry was gay, and how it handled the idea of that. I watched
the same video, I'm pretty sure that if we scrolled through each other's YouTubes, the exact same recommendations would come up. That's fucking wild. TV show stuff and cEDH and other magic.
It's so funny because like they were talking about how like the show just like it didn't talk about how like it was making fun of the situation without making fun of the sexuality. And the thing that they were making fun of was them being like, not that there's anything wrong with that they just said over and over in the show.
Oh my God. Yeah. And there's so many other times where that came up. Are you master of your domain from the past? Right? Like there's so many things that
I'm king of the castle.
Lord of the manor. Like to top it all off, like the really what led the show was the coined terms. Where, like it felt like almost every episode they had a name for somebody.
Yeah.
He's a high talker. She's a low talker. He's a close talker.
It's the puffy shirt.
She got bad breath, right? The puffy shirt. She has man hands. Like there is like these little things that just like you catch yourself.
How do you feel about the Drake?
Love the Drake. Oh, I hate it.
Gotta love the Drake. Gotta love the Drake.
Right? And like it totally helps you classify people at the same time.
It's
like,
so fun.
The yada yada yada, right? Like there's so much stuff that is just absolutely iconic that comes from the show.
It has very few bad episodes.
That is very true. It takes a while for it to find its footing.
Yes.
And that's probably where most of it comes in. Either that or, after Larry David left the show after season 7, it's obvious. Like, they start to do things that they do in other sitcoms that never appeared in Seinfeld. Like chasing montages where, like, Jerry will chase Newman to get something, right? Like, it feels jarring when you see that in a Seinfeld episode down the line.
But that
being said, like, season 9 has, like, some of the heaviest hitters in there. Like, Kruger Industrial Smoothing being introduced in season 9. The return of David Puddy as, like, an actual side character.
I forgot about Industrial Smoothing.
Oh my God. Oh, look at this. Cal. 3 times around, no hands.
Oh my God.
He's so good. He's such a
so
good
funny.
Character. Kramer is iconic.
Oh, for sure.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus is her breakout role.
Oh,
absolute breakout role, which started her whole career. And she is absolutely hysterical.
It's so funny because I feel like every friend group, and part of why I love that show so much, it's in my top 3. It's not number 3, but it's in my top 3. Spoilers.
We'll get nice.
Is like everybody has a George friend, right?
Yes.
Everybody has an Elaine. Everybody has a Kramer. And it's just like everybody knows a Jerry. And it's just like it's so funny because it's like part of what makes that show so great is it's like they are being bad people, but they're about like things that everybody gets annoyed about and frustrated
100%,
with.
100%, yeah.
And it's so funny because it's just like, oh yeah, I also get mad about this. And it's like, it's so funny.
It's one of the most relatable shows in that way, because it's all just little minute stuff that happens. It's not like, this situation is really specific for this like demographic of people. It's not like that at all. This is like, I'm in line for the bank and this is the worst thing in the universe.
Okay, so I'm just gonna get it out now because I've already said this, but it's ranked number 2 for me.
Nice.
And
very, very great spot for it.
One of my favorite things, and I can't remember the episode, but it's the episode where Jerry's car gets stolen.
Oh,
and
yes.
He calls the car phone. And one of my favorite things, and I'm going to see if I can get a clip of it to put on the video podcast so that people can see it.
Yes.
What do I say if he picks up? Hello? Is this 555-8383?
I have no idea.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Did you steal my car?
Yes, I did.
You did?
I did.
But that's my car.
I didn't know it was yours.
Jared, and the best part about that isn't that line. That line's hilarious. But it's George standing there listening who goes, just the little subtle things that everybody does in that show is so funny.
George especially, because George is based around
Larry David. Yeah.
So like watching, like I've watched a couple interviews with like Jason Alexander talking about like how he would like just study Larry David's mannerisms. And like the little George look that's like like when he does it, he kind of like smacks his lip and like widens his eyes a little bit, like right before he'll say something, or like when Jerry gives him a dig, he'll do that look. Like that's a Larry David special right there.
Believe it or not, George isn't
at home. All right, because we're on the top 3, what is your favorite episode of Seinfeld?
Okay, so my favorite episode of Seinfeld. Oh God, that's hard.
While you think, I have one,
okay.
So I'm just gonna go while you're thinking.
Okay.
Best episode is The Opposite, where George does the exact opposite of everything. That is my favorite episode, hands down. Love how he's portrayed.
I think one of my favorite episodes might be Summer of George. I don't know that I can find a favorite episode, but I can definitely tell you one of my favorites is Summer of George. Because it's when he does, or is that the one where he's like, everything I do is the opposite? Or is that a different episode?
No, that's
Summer?
The Opposite.
Okay. Oh, okay.
That's
okay.
The Opposite. Yeah. where he orders tuna on toast.
That's
with
right.
the side of
That's right. That's season 9. That's
My
right.
name is George. My name is George. I'm bald and I live with my parents. Or I'm unemployed and I live with my parents, is what he says.
Yeah.
She can see he's bald. Hi, I'm Veronica. So good. I love everything about that one.
The contest is obviously very good.
Classic episode.
I also think I could tell you one of my least favorite episodes is the parking garage episode.
You don't like that one.
I think.
Does it change your mind to know that the ending of that episode was not scripted and that the car was supposed to start and they drive off? But it was such a long filming day that they were just like, whatever happens is going to happen. This is the last take. We're just calling it after this. So they do the whole thing. And of course, Michael Richards completely fumbles with the air conditioner, trying to put it into the trunk. And he like legit slams his face into the box. And then they're literally supposed to drive off. And like they sit down and they try to start the car. Oh my God. Too good.
Oh man, I can't. There's so many episodes of that show. Like, I don't know that I could pick a favorite. There are just so many good ones. Like the episode where, the episode where Elaine and Jerry are fighting, and Kramer comes in and tries to mediate and tries to get them together.
Now, can't you two tell that you're in love with each other? I love that. That is one of the classic, like, Jerry Seinfeld is not the best actor, but like his delivery is also important for the show too. Yes. When he shouts, "How did you know those condoms were defective?" at Elaine, like that is such the most poorly delivered line in TV history.
But that's like the beauty of the show.
The punch that it has, right? The punch that it has is so good. And I love that it's not a laugh track. Like this is
that's a studio audience
laughter. So when like you listen to the Puffy shirt and you can hear a woman in the studio audience and they cut to the homeless people wearing the shirt, you can hear this woman in the studio audience shouting, "Oh my God." And it's such a good include that just changes how you feel. You feel like you're there in that case. You don't feel like there's just, the same laugh after every joke, like in a Frasier or like in a Big Bang Theory, right? That's just noise. Like it's a legit laugh, and they didn't add any extra.
And the reason for that too is it was like part of how Jerry is a stand-up comedian, right? Yeah. And so part of that was him like almost doing stand-up comedy. You know what I mean? So it was one of those things where the audience the laugh track part of the show serves the format of the show. It because I've seen people who are like, if you take the laugh track out of Seinfeld, here's what it looks like. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. But you have to understand is that Seinfeld is basically one 30-minute stand-up set effectively.
It's a play.
Yeah.
They're putting on a legit play.
It is legitimately just a show that is meant to be like a theatrical thing. Like it is not meant to be like Modern Family or these other shows, right? It is meant to be.
Which is funny considering like half the time they're just sitting around in a coffee shop or just like sitting around at Jerry's apartment.
Right.
Just like bullshitting.
Well, that's what plays are, right? Like it's people talking.
That's true.
So
that's true.
That
literally is.
So my number 3 is actually Seinfeld on crack, which is It's Always Sunny.
Okay.
So
I guess I'm just saying because while we're talking about these, Always Sunny is my favorite TV show of all time. Always Sunny in Philadelphia is my number 1.
So the only reason I have it ranked 3 below Seinfeld is because there's sometimes the humor of It's Always Sunny doesn't land for me. And
fair.
Now, I will say that watching the It's Always Sunny podcast has changed that for me a little bit, because watching them talk about the jokes and talking about like the reasoning and how they got there and also like seeing who they are as people, like made me appreciate the show more.
I almost, especially at the beginning of the podcast, I almost like the podcast more than like the new episodes that they were coming out with.
Yeah.
Like, there was just genuine enthusiasm that was just spewing out of every single one of their pores.
Yeah.
Between all 3 of them. It was amazing to see that come together.
Yeah. But I guess like like it's just like it's a little too off the rails sometimes for me, but it's also one of my favorite TV shows, and it's just like Charlie Day. You can put Charlie Day.
He's a genius.
Like he's fucking funny.
Most brilliant Renaissance man in the universe.
Go ahead and give your whole
we
take.
both have like 50 things that we want to say, and we're both so excited to say them because like that's
Glenn Howerton is great, Rob McElhenney's great, Charlie Day is great.
Dennis Reynolds is my favorite character on the show. I think that it's a very fine line that you have to tread when you're trying to portray someone like Dennis Reynolds, and I think that they do it so perfectly, and they're so on the nose with it. It's perfection.
The thing that I think is funny is listening to the podcast is you would think they each write their own characters, but Charlie writes Dennis's character. And so,
which you would not expect, because Glenn Howerton is so much like Dennis.
He is, and so it's like a lot of the things like he talked about on the podcast that irritate him. It's like, yep, that's Dennis, and
he just doesn't like he's just more tame. He's more tame, and he's not creepy towards women. Is the other thing.
That is accurate.
But like, how many of these other shows like have like Danny DeVito in them? And yes, I know Taxi is not in my top 10, but like this is. What I love about Seinfeld is what I love about Always Sunny, because Always Sunny kicks it up a notch. It brings up the darkness. It brings up the cartoonish appeal as well. Like Charlie Work is the episode that makes me realize that like the show is a cartoon. Like it's a live action cartoon, which makes me more accepting of a lot of the other stuff that they'll end up doing.
That's such a good way of characterizing that show as a live action cartoon.
That's really what it is. All of the characters are amazing on their own. It is political satire through
100%
through. It's so funny, like seeing people get so upset. Oh man, the new seasons are so political. Like literally every episode of season one was about a hot button.
Yeah, I was gonna say, was it like the third episode about them going to like an abortion rally? Like
the second episode was Charlie gets an abortion.
Yeah.
The pilot episode is the gang gets racist, which is a very ballsy episode to just put out there as your first one. Gun fever, underage drinking, like these are all the things that come up in just season one. And it's only expanded upon as the seasons go on, and the arcs that each character takes. Like Mac's character has a beautiful arc. Charlie's character doesn't need to be any more than he is. He is Charlie, and I understand why Charlie doesn't change because he's Charlie. But I think that's another part of the genius is that like Mac's really the only character that's changing, but he's also not changing.
Right.
Like what keeps these characters here is that they're not changing. They're not going to move on from Patty's Pub.
Right.
Because this is who they are. Which is great for me because if I could just be a fly on that wall in that bar for forever, like I want to be Ernie. Like I want to be Ernie.
They have no desire to stop making the show too, is the best part.
They don't. It is the longest running live action sitcom.
Yeah.
And they're in the middle. They're in the middle of creating season 16 currently.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see why they wouldn't create a season 17.
I believe they are already contractually signed up to do 17.
I think that you're right. Now that you say that,
but it's like they are as they're doing the and this is why I told my wife, because she doesn't love the show. It's a little too dark for her, which I get.
Mm-hmm.
But I've shown her particular episodes and like also shown her the podcast. And she's like, the podcast makes me like the show more. And I'm like, I absolutely agree, because you can see how much they love it. And you can see how much of satire it is, because then you see Rob is like in reality. And then you see what Glenn is really like. And then you see what Charlie's like. And I think one of my favorite parts of that is in a recent episode, they like on the fly called Caitlin to like get her perspective on something Rob was talking about.
Yes,
and
I remember
she
that.
At first came in as her character, and then as soon as she was told, "Oh no, this is about real life," you could hear her switch into Caitlin Olsen.
Oh yeah,
and it was like, oh okay, it was so funny.
Caitlin Olsen is so talented. She's so funny. The physical comedy that she does with Dee, like, is perfect. Like, even in like Frank's Little Beauties, when she says, "Ooh, I'm in charge of all the chairs," like that line, she delivers that, and like the motions that she does. I am in charge of the chairs and setting up the chairs. But there's a guy, and his face is busted to bits. This is one of the shows that I could quote like almost entire episodes.
Obviously the Nightman Cometh is so great, so good.
Oh my god. And as a musician, I also really appreciate Charlie Day's musicality.
He is stupid talented.
And the most recent, as of this recording, the most recent episode of the podcast was also about The Nightman Cometh. Yep. Did you listen?
I did, because Lin-Manuel Miranda shows up, and it was great.
Of course he's an Always Sunny fan. That was so great to get, right?
Well, that's also the other thing about it that I love is, so I also am a fan of Taylor Swift. And so she had there was the Anti-Hero music video that came out the day that her album released. And we're watching this music video, because my wife is a huge Swiftie. We got tickets to see her, like floor seats to see Taylor Swift in Cincinnati next year. So like huge fan. And we're sitting there watching this, and they cut to the like funeral part of it. And it has Mike Birbiglia, who's one of my favorite stand-up comics.
Ooh, he's great.
And it also has Mary Elizabeth in it playing her daughter-in-law. And I immediately lose my mind, and I'm like, holy shit, that's the waitress. And I'm just like, Cassie's like, what? And I was like, that's a character from It's Always Sunny. And it's Mike Birbiglia. And then I learned that like Taylor Swift is the godparents of Ryan Reynolds' kids. And so I'm like, so like she brings up the names of it's like the way that Ryan Reynolds and I forget who he's married to.
Brie, she's in the Pretty Little Liars. No, she's
it's
she's blonde.
Blake Lively. God, of course.
That's who it is. I was BL. Brie Larson is who I was thinking of. BL.
Yeah.
Blake Lively. I had the initials.
But
they're the most beautiful couple.
They are. They're so wholesome. But the way that they have like announced the names of their children is Taylor will just throw them in her songs randomly.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. But so because of that, I've now learned, because like Rob and Ryan are like best friends, right? So
they own a soccer team together now.
Yeah. So they're super close. They're big friends. And so Taylor Swift is also like a huge It's Always Sunny fan. And
of course.
So I'm like,
I love this.
And so I'm watching this and I'm like, okay, so this explains everything that I ever needed to know. This makes Taylor Swift even better. And like, it's just one of those things where I'm just like, the show is so well written. It's so funny.
It really is. They are geniuses. And when you really get to know their story, it's even better.
Yeah.
And I living an hour away from Philadelphia, I think also kind of really helps it connect to me.
Yeah.
My brother lives in Philly. My father grew up in Philly like all his life.
Yeah.
Like it's Philadelphia. I totally understand the vibe that these guys are.
Oh, it's so funny too, because when we went to Oktoberfest, and when we were hanging out, we were walking around downtown Philly, and it was the first time I'd really ever been to Philadelphia. And I'm walking around and I'm seeing some of the most absurd shit. And I'm just like, oh, this isn't satire. This is just like an accurate representation of the city. Cool.
Yeah, it is so great. It is so great.
The city's unhinged and I love it.
It really is. Everything about that show is great. All of the side characters that they continuously bring back are great. And
the waiter that they never remember.
Oh my God. So funny. What a great idea for a character.
Right.
The waiter, the lawyer, Artemis, Rickety Cricket, like they're all absolutely phenomenal. Dylan and I actually got to see the podcast film live.
I'm so jealous. So jealous.
It was phenomenal. Big fan servicey kind of show
I'm sure.
they put on. But like they started off by like, you watch the episode. It was The Gang Gets Whacked Part 2.
Okay.
Charlie played piano. They brought back Glenn doing the Steven Spielberg voice.
So
Oh man, it was great. And you know what? Meg, I'm so sorry I don't remember your last name, Megan, but one of these, producers and writers for the show came from Community now.
Yeah.
She was always such a huge Sunny fan. Eventually got to start working on it. And
she was a writer on Modern Family originally.
Oh, she was. I
so
she
has multiple Emmys.
I did know that.
Yeah.
She's the only one in the Always Sunny family that has an Emmy. Which, transitioning, actually, that is my favorite episode of Always Sunny right now.
Yes.
Is the gang desperately tries to win an award. I love everything about the metaphors that this episode contains. The bar Suds is so great.
Yeah.
This episode is what got me to want to do an Always Sunny magic set. I had
Bartender
Greg.
Yes.
Bartender Greg was a card. You could tap him to drink. And I had a bunch of other bless you. I had a bunch of other like cards that had the drink mechanic on it, and like burn spells would be bigger if you drank more this turn, and like it was so much fun. And there's no other TV show that I would want to do a magic set around than Always Sunny.
I have
so much room.
One episode of It's Always Sunny downloaded on my phone so that I can watch it no matter what. And I can't remember what it is, but I know I did it specifically, so we're looking for it. And it's the what is it? It's Mac and Charlie Write a Movie.
What a great
It's
episode.
so funny.
Oh my God. So funny. Every character does some great stuff. The plot twists in there really keep you guessing. Oh my God. That is a great episode. Mac and Charlie's arc in that episode, I think, is my favorite.
Yeah. We've got your one, your three, my three, my two. But before we move on to your two and my one, I do want to say that I do think the most recent season of It's Always Sunny might be my favorite season.
Really?
Because as a whole, I love the story it tells. I like the jokes overall. I think Charlie's arc in the season is like probably one of my favorites.
It's beautiful.
Like,
it is beautiful.
I have cried. Like the scene of him, like, you should have been there for me. I shouldn't have been there for you. Where he's there in the rain. Oh my God, sobbed, and
it is so moving.
It's so sad. But it's also just one of the best scenes where you see Charlie kind of be more of himself and like really like grow as a character. And it's like Charlie stays the same, but you see him grow. And I think that's part of why I like it, because like Charlie's my favorite character. So I think that's partially why I like season 16, 15, whatever
50.
one it is. I think that's why I like it so much, because it's so Charlie centric. And I just think Charlie's hilarious. I love everything. I love his relationship to Frank. I think all of it's so funny. I think the fact that the waitress is his wife is in real life is the funniest thing in the entire world.
It makes that dynamic between the two of them so much more interesting.
It's so funny.
Oh my God.
But anyhow, all right. So that's your favorite show. I guess we're doing the big drum roll for what's your number 2 on your list.
My number 2 show. This is hilarious. Because now the last show I'm going to talk about is the cheat show.
Okay.
This is the cheat show.
Okay.
This is I Think You Should Leave. This is sketch comedy. This is where it's a little bit different, but it's the same actor who's portraying a bunch of different characters throughout the entirety of the only 2 seasons, which are also very short.
Yes.
But what they have available packs the biggest punch. For someone who has only seen episodes a few times, you got to give it another try.
Yeah.
Like it's like a fine wine and gets so much better the more that you've taken it in.
Yeah.
The way that the writing is in such an abrupt and different capacity than every other show that's out there. I saw something where like, Tim Robinson is writing in styles that his young children speak.
Right.
So when he says lines like, I can't know how to know any more about tables. Like, that's not a sentence that comes up like that you would say or like phrase it in that specific way. But like, the only person that would come up with that is a child. So like knowing that, like, it kind of makes it interesting, like, to hear how he spells out things. The delivery, like, it's so easy to just deliver things in the angry and the loud way that, like, you could almost say anything.
I get it. You don't like my brand, okay? You can just say that, Cam.
No, I'm saying
angry and loud. You just described me. Okay,
I'm saying I love it. I love it. It's oh my god, it's so good. Like the sketch where he's they're in the music studio and they're trying to improv a song for the executives. Like, there are some great lines in that. Billy as in him or Billy as in me? Is your name Billy too? No, that's why I'm so fucking confused. Like, it's just it's such a genius. There's so many other genius parts. Did you know that if you just say words, if you say someone else's lines in a play faster than they can, they become your lines? Like, the audience doesn't know the difference. But if you can just say them faster, they're your lines. Like, that's theater. That's like the biggest brain theater move I've ever heard of. And you would only get that out of I Think You Should.
So I've never watched it. You're giving me a reason to watch it.
Almost every single Play to Win episode has an I Think You Should Leave reference in it.
That's beautiful.
Like, at some point or another, like, we are constantly referencing
I know that fact because Ken picks up on every single one of them.
Every single one of them. Yes.
And it's a delight. I'm gonna have to check that show out.
Definitely. It's the cheat show, right? It is not the same format as everything else that we've talked about. But the reason why I have it so much higher than, even other shows that didn't hit my list, Third Rock from the Sun, tons of great shows out there. But this one is the most quotable.
Yeah.
Out of almost, maybe Always Sunny. Maybe I think I find myself quoting Always Sunny a little bit more. But just the way that the lines are and just like how fun it is to say some of them. 50 black slicked back hair wigs. 50 black slicked back hair wigs. Like, that's it's just so much fun to quote. So it really is such a nice cult following that goes along with it. My favorite way, I was at a wedding and I see this guy pass. This is how you can tell if someone else likes the show.
Okay.
You see someone with slicked back hair and you just say, that guy looks like a huge piece of shit. And then
okay.
that was my call. I had one guy standing next to me that lost it and we were best friends the rest of the night.
That's so funny.
So highly recommend it for you, Cal.
So I am excited to check that out. I'm
excited to hear about your number one.
So my number one is, so because you got a cheat show, I am going to put a qualifier on this because I think I am owed that.
Totally.
And also,
this
show did not the technical ending or the technical final season of the show was actually a spinoff that ABC decided was going to. They actually, after the fact, made the final season of the show because they wanted to sell more DVDs, and that's Scrubs.
Scrubs.
Scrubs is my favorite TV show of all time. I have seen every season all the way through 13 plus times, minimum, like minimum. It is my wife knows if I'm not emotionally doing well if I'm laying in bed watching Scrubs, because it's like the perfect show to just like get me where it just vibes really well. I watched it a lot when my mom was going through cancer. And it was just like, it again was another show like The Big Bang Theory and Family Guy and some of those where I watched a lot in high school and it just stuck with me. And this is one of the ones that I think stands above all the other ones as just like so good. It has the best ending of any TV show I've ever seen, the best final episode. And again, the final season of the show is not, in my opinion, actually the show, because
it's not canon.
Yeah, I don't really consider. Well, so they did a thing called Scrubs Interns, and it was originally a spinoff, and it just failed spectacularly. And in order to sell DVDs, because Scrubs DVD sales, because it came out in the like mid thousands, right? It was like one of the highest selling shows on DVD during that time period. And the the spin-off show bombed like terribly. And in order to sell DVDs, they retconned it to be season 9. So now in all of the streaming stuff, it's called season 9, but it's actually it's actually a spin-off show.
That's insane.
Yes. So ABC is
ludicrous.
It actually only has 8 seasons, and only dedicated diehard Scrubs fans know this. But like it has the best ending where JD is standing there in front of, a curtain watching all of the like possible things that can happen in his future, and his story arc, his friendship with Turk is one of my favorite things. All of the characters in that show are just so funny. Ted is my favorite sad sack character ever. One of my favorite things was in the later season. I think it was the final season. It was either the final season or the next to last season. It was either season 7 or season 8. When Michelle or Courtney Cox was guest starring as a character on the show, and she looks in his briefcase and she goes, "Ted, why do you have a..."
Hey, how come all you have in here is a smiley face button and a revolver?
Well, one's in case I get sad, and the other one's in case I get really sad.
Well, see you tomorrow.
We'll see.
And it's just like, the writing on that show is so good. It is the only TV show that balances the drama of the stories it's telling and the comedy. And for people who are doctors who work in the medical field, everybody across the board says it is the most accurate medical TV show ever.
That's good.
It's the only one that actually treats the hospital like it's a hospital. And they're just like, yeah, these are things that happen. And obviously it does like a lot of cutaway things, which is very much my style of humor. And it has all of these things where it is kind of a cartoon, but it also is so grounded in the stories that it tells, and has some of the most emotionally like gut-wrenching episodes. Where, Dr. Cox's friend passes away and he's dealing with that, and you don't know about it until the end of the episode. And it's just things like that where the show is just so well written. And I hate what ABC did to give it a final season when it actually ends in season 8. And it's just like, it is one of my favorite shows. Turk, Carla, Dr. Cox, all of them they're just so funny. They're so dear to my heart. I will cry watching that show. I will die laughing watching that show. I kind of want to cry talking about the show because I love it so much. And it's just like, it hits every note for me. It tells a great story. It's funny. It's emotional. It hit great music too, by the way. So that's my favorite TV show of all time is Scrubs. Nothing goes over Scrubs.
Yeah, no, I've only seen a very small amount of Scrubs, but
yes.
I definitely need to give it a chance after you've just described all that.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the hardest things about a sitcom in general is, I mean, a TV show, TV in general, this is also tough, but like sitcoms especially, I think it's tough to wrap up.
Yes.
Right? It's tough to find an ending, especially if you're a show that doesn't have a plot. Like, what's the last thing you're going to do?
Right.
Like my my theory for Always Sunny is that the ending, none of them can live without all 4 of the other ones, right? So the only thing that they can do, the final scene of the final episode is this: they're gonna all die in a car crash at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna be this the Range Rover up in flames for like 5 seconds, and then nothing. Just the Range Rover in flames for 5 seconds, and then you hear do 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 do, and then the show's over, and then that would be it. I think it's the most justice way to do it. But that being said, like, right, like it's incredibly difficult to do that for a sitcom. So to hear that Scrubs does it like perfectly and has like, you know, a great way to wrap up, that's really exciting.
Anybody who has seen Scrubs from season 1 to season 8 will tell you 8 has the best finale episode of any TV show, period, end of story. It is the best way to wrap up a TV show. And it's just like, it's so satisfying. Every character gets a good arc. The characters that you're supposed to like Dr. Cox is this character that you're like, is this big brash. He's mean. He's kind of like a house-like character, but you see he's humanized, and you see the character development, and he grows over the course of the series. And it's just, I cannot recommend that show enough. It's so fucking funny, and it's so fucking well written. And I also love that show was so culturally relevant that the friendship of JD and Turk has now made it into multiple TV ads.
I have seen that now. Yeah.
It is like very much a thing.
Hey, those are the Scrub guys. Yeah.
Like they're currently in a TV commercial for T-Mobile right now, and they have a contract with them. But they've been in other commercials before, and it's funny because like those two, the actors who play JD and Turk, which is Zach Braff and Donald Faison, didn't know each other before they started filming, and Bill Lawrence cast them, and those two characters were written as the way that they are like in real life now, but they became that way because of how their characters were written, and then they just became best friends. And so it's such a good show. Sarah Chalk, who is also a voice actress in Rick and Morty. She's plays Elliot Reed on that show. You know, so many like really good characters. Neil Flynn, who plays the janitor, is so funny.
He's great.
So fun fact, if you go back and rewatch that show, this has been almost like a 2-hour episode, which is wild. I love it. But
this was the minimum amount of time that we needed to go over this.
Exactly.
Though, if I'm being realistic.
I would agree with you. But so the character of the janitor is beautiful because it was originally conceived because they didn't think the show was going to get more than one season. So they had originally written it to be that in the first season, he never interacted with anybody but JD. And so it was originally supposed to be that the janitor character was like a figment of JD's imagination. But they got renewed, and the character landed so well with audiences that he actually became a character, or like became a real character. And so they actually had to come up with did he actually put a penny in the door or not? And like, it's funny to like go back and listen to Bill Lawrence talk about when they were wrapping the show up. Like, how do we actually bring that together? Because we didn't actually know originally, because it was supposed to be JD being nervous about his first day. And
that really brings out the creativity of that team.
Yes.
That really does show that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a wonderful show. I can't recommend it enough. And but yeah, well, Cam, this was such a good time. I'm glad we got to sit down for 2 hours and not talk about Magic the Gathering.
Me too. I think this was a very welcome break to sit down and talk about a separate passion that we have.
Yeah.
And I could not be more thrilled to have done this with you today, Cal. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for doing it with me, and hopefully if people like this, we'll do more maybe. So
I'm into that.
That's... Well, that about wraps things up for us here today on this week's episode of The Mind Sculptors. Thank you for tuning in. If you liked this episode or any of our other episodes, please make sure to rate the show on whatever podcast platform you are listening on. Or if you are watching or listening on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and tell us down in the comments what your favorite part of the show was, or just your general thoughts. I would also like to thank our top tier patrons, Justin, Adam Hamden, David Snevely, Dionysius, Jason Bialik, Josh Stein, Matt Boehner, and Senior Coupon. If you too would like to support the show, you can head on over to patreon.com/The Mind Sculptors or check out the link in the description. Thank you again for joining us, and from all of us here at The Mind Sculptors, I'm Callahan, and we'll see you next time.